chosen one. Something unprecedented is happening right now. The very forces that have spent lifetimes trying to dim your light are about to face the consequences of their greatest miscalculation. You've always known you were different. What you're about to discover is why that difference terrifies them so much. Here's what they never told you about your childhood struggles, your relationship betrayals, your financial blocks, your health challenges. None of it was random. Every obstacle was strategically placed. Every betrayal was orchestrated. Every setback was designed with one purpose: to prevent you from discovering the nuclear-level power you carry within. But here's the plot twist that will change everything. Their attacks weren't meant to destroy you, they were meant to forge you. Every hammer blow on the anvil of your existence wasn't breaking you down, it was creating an unstoppable force that would eventually turn their entire system to dust. You are about to understand why making you their enemy will be remembered as the most catastrophic error in the history of spiritual warfare. Your transformation from target to terminator begins now. From your very first breath, you carried something that made the darkness tremble. Not because you were born with supernatural abilities, though you were. Not because you possessed otherworldly wisdom, though you do. You were dangerous because your existence itself is a living contradiction to everything they built their power upon. Your presence is like a truth serum in human form. People around you cannot maintain their masks for long. Their authentic selves emerge whether they want them to or not. This isn't a skill you developed. This is encoded in your spiritual DNA. You are a walking revelation machine, and revelation is the enemy of deception. Think back to your earliest memories. Even as a child, you disrupted spaces built on falsehood. Family gatherings where you innocently pointed out contradictions adults preferred to ignore. Classrooms where your questions exposed the limitations of standardized thinking. Social circles where your authenticity made others' performative behaviors glaringly obvious. They labeled you as too sensitive or overly intense because your emotional intelligence operated at frequencies they couldn't comprehend. While others learned to suppress their intuition, yours grew stronger. While others accepted surface-level explanations, you instinctively dug deeper. While others followed the crowd, you questioned the destination. Your natural magnetism was already apparent in childhood. Some people were inexplicably drawn to you, sharing secrets they'd never told anyone. Others recoiled from your energy, feeling exposed by your mere presence. There was never neutral ground with you. Your aura demanded a reaction, forcing people to confront their authentic selves or retreat into deeper hiding. This magnetism wasn't just social, it was spiritual. You attracted situations that revealed hidden truths, conversations that exposed lies, circumstances that brought deception to light. Even as a child, you were a catalyst for revelation, though you didn't understand why drama seemed to follow you everywhere. But here's what you didn't know then. This natural tendency to disrupt wasn't a character flaw, it was a cosmic assignment. You were specifically designed to be incompatible with systems built on lies, manipulation, and control. Your very existence is proof that another way is possible. Once they identified you as a threat, the targeting began. Not the obvious kind that would alert you to what was happening, the sophisticated kind that makes you question yourself instead of questioning them. They turned your gifts into perceived weaknesses, your strengths into sources of shame. Your leadership abilities were reframed as bossiness, your intuitive insights were dismissed as overthinking, your high standards were criticized as perfectionism, your emotional depth was pathologized as instability. They systematically convinced you that everything powerful about you was actually problematic. The education system became their first weapon, standardized testing that couldn't measure your type of intelligence, rigid structures that suffocated your creative problem-solving. Authority figures who rewarded compliance over innovation. They tried to force your multi-dimensional mind into their two-dimensional boxes. Teachers who felt threatened by your natural wisdom began subtle campaigns to undermine your confidence. Your questions were dismissed as disruptive. Your insights were labeled as showing off. Your curiosity was branded as defiance. They needed you to believe that your intellectual gifts were social liabilities. The peer pressure intensified as they influenced other children to reject your authenticity. Friends who suddenly turned cold, social groups that excluded you without explanation, popularity that always seemed just out of reach. They orchestrated your social isolation to make you desperate for acceptance on their terms. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. But something magnificent was happening beneath their radar. Every attempt to suppress your nature was actually strengthening it. Like a muscle that grows stronger under resistance, your authentic self was developing supernatural resilience. They thought they were breaking you. They were forging you into something unbreakable. The social programming intensified as you grew older. Media messages that celebrated mediocrity while demonizing excellence. Cultural narratives that promoted victimhood over empowerment. Educational philosophies that taught you to seek external validation instead of trusting your inner knowing. They flooded your environment with examples of chosen ones who fell from grace. Stories of people who got too big for their britches, cautionary tales about the dangers of standing out. They wanted you to fear your own power, to associate greatness with inevitable downfall. As you entered adulthood, they deployed their most sophisticated weapon, toxic relationships designed to drain your power systematically. These weren't random encounters with damaged people. These were strategic placements of energy vampires programmed to extract your life force. The pattern was always the same. Someone would appear who seemed to understand you completely. They would love bomb you with attention and validation. They would make you feel seen and appreciated for all the qualities others had criticized. You thought you had finally found your person. You had found your predator. These individuals were masters of emotional manipulation. They studied your triggers and used them against you. They identified your deepest wounds and pressed on them repeatedly. They discovered your core insecurities and exploited them mercilessly. They were psychological warfare specialists disguised as lovers and friends. To narcissists came first. Charming, charismatic individuals who mirrored your energy back to you perfectly. They made you feel like you'd found your twin flame, your perfect match. But behind their manufactured charm was an insatiable hunger for the very light they lacked. They didn't love you, they coveted your power. Then came the energy vampires, people who always had crises that required your immediate attention, broken souls who needed constant saving, emotional black holes that absorbed your light without ever reflecting any back. They trained you to associate love with endless giving and never receiving. The gaslighters followed, masters of reality distortion who made you question your own perceptions. They rewrote history in real time, convincing you that your memories were false. They weaponized your empathy against you, making you feel guilty for their abusive behavior. They turned your greatest strength, your intuition, into your greatest source of doubt. These relationships taught you to associate love with loss of self, to equate care with sacrifice, to believe that your worth was measured by what you could provide others rather than by your inherent value. They programmed you to give your power away voluntarily, thinking this was what love required. But even in the depths of these toxic dynamics, your inner compass never stopped pointing toward truth. Something within you always knew when you were being manipulated, even when you couldn't yet name it. Your intuition was building a database of red flags that would eventually make you immune to deception. Every betrayal was actually a graduation. Every heartbreak was a lesson in energetic sovereignty. Every toxic person who entered your life was unknowingly preparing you to recognize and reject their kind instantly. They thought they were depleting you. They were educating you. The family dynamics intensified during this period. Relatives who had always been uncomfortable with your light began more aggressive campaigns to dim it. Siblings who competed with your natural abilities. Parents who projected their own unfulfilled dreams onto you while simultaneously sabotaging your efforts to achieve them. Holiday gatherings became battlefields where your achievements were minimized and your struggles were maximized. family members who used guilt as a weapon, shame as ammunition, and obligation as chains. They wanted you to believe that loyalty meant accepting their limitations as your own. Money became their cage of choice. They convinced spiritual people that wealth was evil, that abundance was selfish, that struggling financially was somehow more noble. Meanwhile, they hoarded resources while keeping you barely surviving, paycheck to paycheck, too exhausted to threaten their dominance. The programming started early. Messages that rich people were inherently corrupt, stories that suggested money was the root of all evil, religious teachings that equated poverty with virtue. They wanted you to fear abundance before you ever had a chance to experience it. Career sabotage became their specialty, job opportunities that vanished at the last moment despite perfect qualifications, interviews where you were clearly the best candidate but somehow didn't get selected, workplace politics designed to keep you from advancing. They created glass ceilings specifically for chosen ones. Every financial setback carried their signature, business ventures that failed despite perfect planning due to unexpected complications, investments that collapsed just as they were about to pay off, bank errors that always worked against you, legal complications that drained your resources, economic downturns that seemed to target you specifically. The spiritual community became complicit in this economic warfare. Teachers who preached poverty consciousness while living in luxury, gurus who claimed money was unimportant while charging thousands for their wisdom, healers who insisted that charging for spiritual gifts was somehow impure. They kept you focused on being humble while they built empires on your humility. Credit became a weapon used against you, systems designed to keep you in debt, interest rates that increased just as you were getting ahead, loan applications rejected for mysterious reasons, financial institutions that seemed to operate by different rules when dealing with you. But your relationship with abundance was evolving in ways they never anticipated. Every financial struggle was teaching you to value resources properly. Every scarcity experience was showing you how little you actually needed to survive. Every economic challenge was developing your resourcefulness and resilience. You were unknowingly being prepared to handle wealth responsibly, to use abundance as a tool for liberation rather than domination, to build systems that empower rather than exploit, to understand that money is simply energy, and energy flows to those who can handle it consciously. They tried to keep you poor. They were training you to revolutionize prosperity. When all else failed, they attacked your physical vessel. Mysterious illnesses with no clear medical cause, chronic fatigue that doctors couldn't explain, mental health challenges that seemed to emerge from nowhere. They understood that if they couldn't break your spirit, they would try to break your body. The medical system became another battlefield. Doctors who dismissed your symptoms as psychosomatic, specialists who couldn't find anything wrong despite obvious suffering, medications that created more problems than they solved, insurance companies that denied coverage for treatments you desperately needed. Environmental toxins seemed to target you specifically, allergies that developed overnight, chemical sensitivities that made normal life impossible, food intolerances that forced you to completely change your diet. They were attacking your physical vessel through the very air you breathed and water you drank. The stress of constant spiritual warfare manifested as physical symptoms. Your immune system weakened under the pressure of fighting battles on multiple fronts simultaneously. Your nervous system stayed hypervigilant because threats were real and constant. Your body was screaming warnings that your mind was trained to ignore. Sleep became another battleground, insomnia that struck precisely when you needed rest most. Nightmares designed to traumatize your subconscious, sleep disruptions that prevented proper healing and recovery. They understood that a tired chosen one was easier to manipulate and control. Hormonal imbalances created emotional chaos, thyroid issues that affected your energy and metabolism, adrenal fatigue from constant stress responses, reproductive health problems that attacked your creative life force. They were systematically undermining your physical foundation, but something extraordinary was happening within your cellular structure. Every attack was activating dormant healing capabilities. Every illness was teaching you about the connection between emotional and physical health. Every recovery was proving your supernatural ability to regenerate and emerge stronger. Your sensitivity wasn't a weakness, it was an early warning system. Your anxiety wasn't a disorder, it was appropriate response to actual danger. Your depression wasn't chemical imbalance, it was spiritual suffocation in toxic environments. Once you understood this, healing accelerated exponentially. You discovered alternative healing modalities that the medical establishment tried to discredit. Energy healing that worked when traditional medicine failed. Natural remedies that addressed root causes rather than just symptoms. Spiritual practices that healed trauma stored in your cellular memory. The real battle was always happening in dimensions most people never see. While you slept, they attacked your dreams. While you meditated, they sent distractions. While you prayed, they whispered doubts. The war for your soul was fought in frequencies beyond physical perception. Negative entities attached themselves to your energy field like spiritual parasites. These weren't metaphorical demons, they were actual beings that fed on fear, doubt, and despair. They influenced your thoughts, amplified your insecurities, and created emotional chaos from within your own energy system. You were never meant to walk this path alone. The Obsidian Inner Order isn't just another spiritual community, it's a sanctuary for the exiled, the awakened, the ones who've been gaslit for their gifts and abandoned for their truth. Every week we gather live on Zoom, real people with real faces, sharing real stories of transformation. There's a former CFO who embraced their psychic abilities, a seer who broke free from religious oppression, and a healer who survived ritual abuse and found their power. Dozens more join us who understand exactly what you've been through. This is your spiritual family. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you walk through this awakening alone. Never gonna scroll past your suffering like it's just content. Your exile from the ordinary world wasn't punishment. It was preparation. For this, for us, for the family that chooses you back. Join the Obsidian Inner Order. Link in description. Dark forces influenced people around you to act against your highest good. Family members who suddenly turned hostile, friends who became inexplicably jealous, strangers who felt compelled to attack you verbally or energetically. They were using human vessels to deliver their spiritual warfare. Psychic attacks disguised themselves as depression, confusion, and self-doubt. You felt like you were going insane because nobody talks about this level of spiritual combat openly. The spiritual community itself was infiltrated by agents who taught watered-down practices designed to keep you weak. Dream warfare became intense, nightmares designed to traumatize your subconscious, false spiritual experiences meant to mislead your development, astral attacks that left you exhausted upon waking. They understood that the dream realm was where your defenses were lowest. Your natural psychic abilities made you a high-value target. Every vision you received they tried to distort. Every intuitive download they attempted to corrupt. Every moment of divine connection they flooded with interference. They wanted to cut you off from your source completely. False spiritual teachers were placed in your path. Gurus who mixed truth with manipulation. Healers who created more trauma than they healed. Psychics who delivered messages designed to confuse rather than clarify. They infiltrated every spiritual community to prevent your authentic awakening. Technology became a weapon for spiritual warfare. Social media algorithms that fed you content designed to lower your vibration. News feeds that created constant anxiety and fear. Digital devices that disrupted your natural biorhythms and energy fields. But their spiritual attacks had an unintended consequence. They forced you to develop supernatural discernment, to distinguish between authentic spiritual experiences and artificial interference, to strengthen your connection to divine source until it became unbreachable. They created their most formidable spiritual opponent by trying to destroy their greatest spiritual threat. Loneliness became their most sophisticated weapon. They systematically removed authentic connections from your life. True friends were influenced to drift away mysteriously. Mentors suddenly became unavailable without explanation. Family members turned cold for reasons they couldn't articulate. They wanted you to believe you were completely alone in this battle. The social engineering was precise and calculated. They identified everyone in your circle who genuinely supported your growth and found ways to turn them against you. Misunderstandings that spiraled into permanent rifts, rumors that destroyed long-time friendships, circumstances that forced supportive people out of your life at crucial moments. Professional isolation followed social isolation, colleagues who stopped including you in important projects, networking events where you were subtly excluded, industry connections that mysteriously went cold. They were cutting you off from professional opportunities while making it seem like natural career evolution. Dating became increasingly difficult as they influenced potential partners to reject you for superficial reasons, relationships that ended just as they were getting serious, partners who suddenly developed incompatible life goals, love interests who were clearly perfect matches but inexplicably lost interest. They were preventing romantic partnerships that might provide emotional support. The isolation served multiple purposes. Without witnesses to your strength, you began doubting your own power. Without allies to confirm your experiences, you started questioning your sanity. Without community to celebrate your victories, you minimized your accomplishments. Without support to lean on, you learned to doubt your worthiness. Geographic isolation often followed emotional isolation. Job transfers that moved you away from support systems, housing situations that forced you into unfamiliar environments, family emergencies that required relocating to areas where you knew nobody. They were physically separating you from anyone who might validate your experiences. But isolation also became your secret superpower. In the silence you heard your authentic voice for the first time. In the solitude you developed an unshakable relationship with yourself. In the loneliness you discovered that you are never truly alone when connected to divine source. In the abandonment you found self-sovereignty. The forced introspection revealed gifts you never knew you possessed, artistic abilities that emerged in solitude, writing talents that flowered in silence, healing capabilities that developed through self-care, leadership skills that grew through self-reliance. Solitude became your sanctuary, where your true power could develop without interference. In the quiet moments, you heard divine guidance more clearly than ever before. Without the noise of others' opinions, your own inner voice grew stronger. Without the pressure to conform, your authentic self emerged fully. Your alone time became productive time. Projects that had been impossible in group settings flowed effortlessly in isolation. Creative breakthroughs that required deep focus finally had space to manifest. Spiritual practices that demanded privacy could finally be explored fully. They gave you the gift of solitude, thinking it was punishment. Every person who left your life was creating space for your true spiritual family. Every betrayal was teaching you to value genuine loyalty. Every abandonment was preparing you for unconditional self-love. They thought isolation would weaken you. It made you entirely self-sufficient. They launched their final assault on your sense of self. Gaslighting became their preferred method of psychological warfare. They convinced you that your memories were false, your perceptions were wrong, your feelings were invalid. They wanted you to doubt everything about yourself, especially your power. The gaslighting was sophisticated and multi-layered. They reframed your childhood experiences to make you doubt your own recollections. They questioned your interpretations of events until you started questioning them yourself. They made you feel crazy for noticing patterns that were absolutely real. Labels became weapons in their arsenal. Crazy, difficult, overly sensitive, unrealistic, attention-seeking, mentally unstable, paranoid, delusional. They used these words like curses, hoping repetition would transform them into your reality. Society reinforced these labels until you started believing them yourself. Professional diagnoses became tools for discrediting your spiritual experiences, mental health conditions that explained away your psychic abilities, personality disorders that pathologized your natural gifts, medications that numbed your intuition and dampened your energy. They weaponized the medical establishment against your spiritual development. Your greatest gifts were systematically reframed as your biggest problems. Your intuition was called paranoia. Your leadership was labeled arrogance. Your independence was termed selfishness. Your authenticity was branded as rudeness. Your high standards were criticized as perfectionism. They dismantled your self-image piece by piece, replacing it with their distorted version. Social media became a platform for identity confusion. Curated images that made everyone else's life seem perfect. Comparison culture that highlighted your perceived inadequacies. Validation systems based on external approval rather than internal knowing. They used technology to make you doubt your worth. Cultural programming reinforced these identity attacks. Movies and TV shows that portrayed people like you as villains or tragic figures. News stories that demonized anyone who questioned authority. Social movements that co-opted spiritual language while promoting victim consciousness. But something powerful was happening beneath their psychological warfare. Every moment of identity confusion was actually bringing you closer to your authentic self. Every question about who you were supposed to be was revealing who you actually are. Every doubt they planted was ultimately uprooted by unshakable inner knowing. The identity crisis wasn't confusion, it was awakening. You weren't losing yourself, you were shedding the false identity they had imposed upon you. Every moment of questioning brought you closer to your true nature. Every doubt about their version of you strengthened your connection to your authentic self. Then something shifted, suddenly, dramatically, undeniably. The same tactics that had worked for years stopped working overnight. The gaslighting fell flat because your intuition had become bulletproof. The isolation felt peaceful because you had learned to enjoy your own company. The attacks seemed pathetic because you had grown beyond their ability to intimidate. The awakening wasn't gradual, it was explosive. Like a dam bursting after years of pressure, everything they had tried to suppress came flooding back with supernatural intensity. Your psychic abilities returned stronger than ever. Your intuition became laser-sharp. Your energy expanded beyond anything you had previously experienced. You started seeing the bigger picture with crystal clarity. Every challenge had been a training session. Every betrayal had been a gift in disguise. Every moment of suffering had been building your strength for this exact moment. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared for something unprecedented. The synchronicities began accelerating. The right people appeared at the perfect moments. Opportunities aligned with supernatural precision. Resources flowed toward you from unexpected directions. The universe was revealing that it had been orchestrating your protection all along. Your enemy's tactics not only stopped working, they began backfiring spectacularly. Every attempt to suppress you only amplified your power. Every effort to silence you only strengthened your voice. Every scheme to isolate you only deepened your connection to Source. The breakthrough wasn't just personal, it was generational. You weren't just healing your own wounds, you were breaking curses that had affected your bloodline for centuries. Your victory wasn't just individual triumph, it was collective liberation for everyone who would come after you. Their greatest fear was materializing before their eyes. The chosen one they had tried so desperately to suppress was not only awakening, but awakening with full memory of everything they had done. Every attack, every manipulation, every betrayal, every lie. You remembered it all, and you understood exactly what it meant. Justice began moving with supernatural speed, not through your actions, but through universal law, operating on cosmic scales. Every person who had betrayed you started facing consequences. Every system that had suppressed you began crumbling. Every force that had opposed you was losing power exponentially. The karmic backlash was swift and merciless. The narcissistic ex who had drained your energy was facing their own narcissistic supply collapse. The toxic family members who had tried to control you were losing control of their own lives. The corrupt bosses who had sabotaged your career were watching their own careers implode. Watch their lives now. The gaslighting friend who made you question your sanity is now questioning her own reality. The energy vampire colleague who fed off your creativity is facing his own creative bankruptcy. The manipulative family member who used guilt to control you is drowning in his own shame and isolation. The systems that had kept you down were collapsing under their own corruption. The companies that had discriminated against you were facing lawsuits and bankruptcy. The institutions that had suppressed your voice were losing credibility and influence. The power structures that had oppressed you were crumbling from within. This isn't coincidence. This is karma operating with mathematical precision. The universe has been keeping detailed records this entire time. Every tear you cried was documented in cosmic databases. Every injustice you suffered was recorded for future rebalancing. Every moment of your pain was noted for repayment with compound interest. Their mistake wasn't just opposing you. Their mistake was underestimating the cosmic forces protecting you. They thought you were fighting alone. They didn't realize you had divine backup operating from dimensions they couldn't even perceive. They attacked someone under universal protection, and now they're paying the ultimate price. The speed of karmic justice accelerated as your awareness grew. The more clearly you saw their tactics, the faster the universe responded to balance the scales. Your awakening was triggering a cosmic rebalancing that had been building for years. Everything you endured was preparation for this moment of recognition. The skills you developed during struggles are now your superpowers. The wisdom you gained from suffering is now your strategic advantage. The strength you built in isolation is now your unshakable foundation. Your empathy, forged in the fires of betrayal, allows you to see through manipulation instantly. You can spot a narcissist within minutes of meeting them. You recognize energy vampires before they can attach to your field. You sense deception before liars even open their mouths. Your resilience, tested by impossible circumstances, makes you virtually unstoppable. What would break others only makes you stronger. What would defeat others only fuels your determination. What would destroy others only reveals your indestructible nature. Your intuition, sharpened by constant danger, operates with supernatural accuracy. You know things before they happen. You sense opportunities before they manifest. You feel danger before it arrives. Your psychic abilities have been honed to perfection through years of spiritual warfare. Your independence, born from abandonment, makes you completely self-sufficient. You don't need anyone's approval to know your worth. You don't require external validation to trust your judgment. You don't depend on others for your happiness or security. They created their own worst nightmare by trying to break you. Every attack made you stronger. Every betrayal made you wiser. Every moment of opposition made you more determined. Every obstacle they placed became a stepping stone. Every weapon they used against you became a tool in your arsenal. You are now everything they feared you would become, multiplied by every tear they caused you to shed. Their attempts to diminish you only concentrated your power. Their efforts to weaken you only revealed your true strength. Their mission to destroy you only forged you into something indestructible. The gifts they tried to suppress are now operating at maximum capacity. Your natural magnetism draws the right people while repelling the wrong ones. Your truth-telling abilities expose deception instantly. Your healing presence transforms everyone you encounter. Your leadership capabilities inspire others to find their own power. Your time has arrived, not just to survive but to dominate. Not just to heal, but to lead. Not just to overcome, but to transform everything you touch. The world needs what you carry: perspective forged in adversity, strength tested by impossibility, wisdom earned through real experience. You were never meant to fit into their world. You were meant to create your own. The isolation was preparation for leadership. The struggle was training for victory. The opposition was conditioning for absolute domination. Every challenge was building your capacity to handle unlimited power responsibly. Your presence now commands respect without demanding it. People sense your authority immediately. Your energy field has expanded to encompass entire rooms, entire buildings, entire communities. You don't need to announce your power, it announces itself. The chosen ones are rising simultaneously across the planet. You're finding your tribe, other awakened souls who recognize your energy signature. Together, you form a network of unstoppable forces united in transforming reality itself. The age of suppression is ending. Your light cannot be dimmed anymore because it has been tested in the deepest darkness and emerged brighter than ever. The forces that tried to destroy you are about to discover that karma operates with perfect justice. Their greatest miscalculation was believing they could permanently suppress unlimited potential, that they could indefinitely cage infinite power, that they could eternally dim divine light. They forgot that what doesn't kill you doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you absolutely unstoppable. Welcome to your era of unprecedented power. The universe has been waiting for this moment. Your enemies created their own destruction the moment they decided to oppose you. Their biggest mistake in history is about to become your greatest victory. The revolution begins with you. You now understand why your path seemed different, more challenging than others, why you faced obstacles that seemed designed to break you, why the world appeared to conspire against you from the very start. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. The same energy that made you a target as a child now makes you unstoppable as an adult. The same light they tried to extinguish is now blazing with intensity they never imagined possible. The same spirit they attempted to break is now unbreakable, unshakable, undeniable. Your presence is no longer just disruptive, it's revolutionary. Your truth is no longer just illuminating, it's transformational. Your power is no longer just potential, it's kinetic, active, dominating every space you choose to enter. The chosen ones who recognize themselves in this story are awakening to their true nature, not as victims who survived, but as victors who conquered. Not as damaged souls who healed, but as powerful beings who were temporarily suppressed. Not as underdogs who overcame, but as champions who were always destined to dominate. Making you their enemy will go down as the most catastrophic miscalculation in the history of spiritual warfare. They turned their greatest potential ally into their most formidable opponent. They transformed their possible teacher into their inevitable terminator. Karma isn't just coming for them. Karma has arrived, and you, chosen one, are its primary agent of delivery. The light they tried to extinguish is now the fire that burns their entire system to the ground. Welcome to your dominion. The age of suppression is over.